What's going on, guys? It's me. I'm here. Just had a shot of whiskey before I started this conversation because I want to keep shit real, and nothing makes things more real than brown liquor. You know what I'm saying? What's up, y'all? I hope you're having a good day, night, morning, whenever you're listening. I just want us to dive into this show. This is show. It's going to be less of a show and more of a conversation. I want to talk about mental health, guys, because this world, life is fucked. It's completely fucked. Like, let's call a thing here, people. Life is fucked up. Being an adult is trash. No one could have prepared us for how fucking annoying it would be to grow up. Even, I mean, let's be real. A lot of us had fucked up childhoods, so it's like you move from one version of fucked to another, but at least you have, pubic hairs and a beard in the second half of how fucked up life is for you. But, guys, I think we should focus on the positives, right? Having said that, I think we should focus on the positives, and the positives are, throughout all this shit, there are these little, fucking, little strings, little strands of good things that do happen in life. And I think we need to find a way to better focus on those. And how can we do that? How can we focus on the good things? I think we do that by making sure our mental health is fucking together, guys, right? Making sure that we're all not just having a goddamn mental breakdown, because I feel like I'm having one every 3 days. Like it's like a small one, but I just feel it, I'm black, I'm stressed, depressed, gay, all of the above. There's several boxes that I check off. It's like a fucking twisted variety pack from God, just as a joke. He's like, let me throw all this shit in there in the blender at once and just see how this fucking shit smoothie tastes of, anxiety, panic, disorder, fucking pandemic, Donald Trump. He's like, let me just throw all this into this fucked up shit blender of life and just give you a nice shit smoothie and see how that shit tastes, So I created this podcast about 5 minutes ago because if I'm feeling like I'm going crazy and I'm just me going through my shit, I can only imagine I'm not the only one. So I figure, let's have some conversations. Let's talk about our mental health. Let's take away the stigma. Let's normalize talking about not feeling okay. Can we just say, I'm not okay? And can we all be okay with not being okay? Because I'm not. Fortunately, I'm in therapy right now. So I would love to share some of the nuggets that I pull out of that 10-piece that my therapist hands me every week when I hand him my copay. I would love to have discussions with my friends about their mental health journeys. I think we should just all be fucking real about this shit and stop pretending like we're all good. Stop doing it for the gram. I'm guilty as fuck of that. And just keep it real. So I like to make a lot of jokes and I like to laugh, and I don't ever want to stop that, but that's been a defense mechanism and that's been my survival technique to get through life. However, I feel like that stifles my fucking growth in certain areas, and I might not be the only one. So, I mean this literally and figuratively. All jokes aside, let's have some real conversations from real people. Funny people who are fucking depressed, like myself. Real people who are going through shit. Let's talk about it, guys, because you know what? We're all one fucking dirty door handle away from a fucking global pandemic disease that could fucking run havoc through our goddamn body. So let's just enjoy life while we can, and let's figure out together how we're gonna enjoy life, man, and how we're just gonna get off the ledge and just smile and really mean it. So, welcome to the show, guys. Hope you enjoy it. And let's dive into this shit. Alright, well, here we are in the first episode, guys. And I think what I owe you guys is an introduction. Like, who the fuck am I, right? So, my name is Anthony, guys. I have been podcasting for about 3 years now. I've done some media work. I've been on a couple red carpets, you see where that's gotten me. I'm sitting here in in my modest living room, I'm just, no shade, I'm just kidding, but there goes humor, using that to deflect away from my own issues and insecurities about where I'm at in life. Did you guys catch that? Because I caught it. Put that in my notes to talk to my therapist about it tomorrow. But no, on a more serious note, rather, yeah. So I've done a lot of podcasting. I currently live in Chicago. I'm from Florida, born and raised. I was raised in a very interesting household with very loving parents, lots of siblings, and a lot more trauma. So just a lot of chaotic family trauma, chaotic family environment. Just, I mean, loving people, but you can't. One thing I'm learning in therapy is you can't, take someone's intentions, right? Because they have good intentions, they have a good heart, right? You can't take that and allow yourself to never hold them accountable for their actions that were fucked up because you would rather because you feel this guilt associated with the fact that they're just good people, right? So, like I was saying, chaotic environment. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. We are not close. There are currently, I have 4. I had 4 siblings. I do have 3 now. My brother did pass away in about 3 years ago, 4 years ago now. So that was interesting due to drug use, so that is always fun. And yeah, so my parents were pretty normal. I feel like we had a pretty normal-ish black family. We're in a small town in an all-white neighborhood, hence, the reason I sound like this. And then my parents found Jesus behind the couch one day, and they're like, "Oh my God!" Like, I feel like new Christians are always the worst. So they found Christ, because I think they were already like moderate Christians, and then they became, very heavily involved with Jesus and the church. Meanwhile, I'm just a little closet case over here, a little teapot, short and stout, trying to figure out myself and my identity as a growing tween. And my family went headfirst into an almost cult-like religious situation, where we were going to church 6 days a week, and where everyone's speaking in tongues. And we went to a church where we were throwing money at the pastor, and we bought the pastor's wife a BMW, and we were trying to help them afford an airplane. And we were affiliated with Creflo Dollar's church. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. Please feel free to Google it. And yeah, we used to pull an invisible lever and scream, "Money cometh to me in Jesus' name." And it was all about, the sermons were all about how if you give money to God, God will give it back to you. You got to sow your seed. And, how your 10% of your income does not belong to you because that's God's, that's the tithe. But then you also needed to give a sacrificial offering. And they called it that because you had to give enough money to where it hurt. And then that's how you knew God was going to give you some shit back. Now, newsflash, spoiler alert, my family is still broke. And they've been at that church for like 20 years. I'm just joking. They're not broke, but they are not nearly anywhere close to the riches and, streets paved with gold and honey that this church painted out our life to be if we gave and were diligent and were, dedicated to our religion. I mean, we were at church for something or another about 6 days a week. On Sundays, I was at church. This is through middle school and high school. The latter part of middle school and high school, we were at church 6 days a week. I was at church on Sundays we would leave at 5 in the morning to get to the church, which was 45 minutes away. And I would come home around 3 p.m. that day. So I worked in various, departments in the church, which basically was free labor because I worked in the television production department in the church. So because the church was a nationally syndicated church, or nationally whatever, it was on several different TV channels, so there were cameramen all over, and I worked in the control room. When the cameras would switch from one camera to another, I would control the lighting and things like that. I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, doing all this for free, which is cute. Eventually I got my own job, a real job, quote unquote, when I was in high school. I started working at McDonald's and was able to quit doing my church shit because my parents wanted me to work because they didn't want to have to pay for everything. So they liked the idea of me going out and working, but that was the only thing that got me away from the church a little. But I mean, I'll dive into my religious trauma a little more, but it was just one of those crazy churches where, I had to get rid of all my music that wasn't Christian music. So all my Destiny's Child CDs, everything went. I remember sitting on New Year's Eve for Y2K. we sat, my family, we took communion, me and my parents, because we believed that the rapture was going to happen and that God was going to take us at midnight. And now I didn't consider time zones or any of that, but I just remember taking communion with them and then thinking to myself that I wanted to do three things: go to a Beyonce concert, go to a nightclub, and kiss a boy. And I remember being like, I don't know, 12 or 13 and just stressed out because I was like, fuck, man, like, I'm going to goddamn go to fucking, like, I'm going to get sucked up in this shit. Like, this sucks. I'm not going to be able to grow, like, pubes or, like, fuck on somebody. Like, nothing, everything's trash, But clearly that didn't happen. But that just gives you an example of that upbringing. Meanwhile, my siblings were going crazy and doing their own things and living their own life and having their own drama and, um, dealing with the drama of having a drug addict as a family member is very hard. It's very stressful. It is very anxiety inducing. So I was fortunate to find some friendships that really helped get me through a lot of that. I became friends with girls because I was gay, but I was in the closet. So being friends with the girls, I mean, I feel like you have your own, growing up, everyone has shit that they're freaked out about or scared about or insecure about. But then you meet girls. And girls, when you become best friends with them, you begin to learn their insecurities and you begin to take those on because there's no one that is critiqued more and torn apart more in America, or in the world, than women in general. So it's like women are hyper aware of their every flaw, of their every issues. So you become best friends with a ton of girls and then you take that on. So I was taking that on, struggling, with my parents who were so extreme with religion and my own sexuality, hiding that, pretending to be straight. And yeah, I didn't come out until I was about, officially to my parents, till I was, I think, 21 and already in a long term, not a long term, but in a serious relationship at the time, serious for a 21-year-old rather. And, coming out was tough. I can't lie. I mean, my mom went crazy. I was sitting next to her in the car and I had my wrist, girl, come on, let's be real. My wrist was broke. She's like, why are you holding your hand like that? And she was just stressing me out, like, yelling that at me. And I was like, bitch, like, I didn't say bitch, but I thought it. I was just like, because I'm gay. And she's like, what? And then she lost her shit. And we went home and I was still living with them. I was 21. And I'd moved out and lived with my best friend's family for a little while because my brother's drug issues were just too much and I couldn't afford to live on my own because I was working part-time and going to school full-time, and I'd started my own photography company at the time and was doing amateur photography. So I'd live with my best friend's family, which I'm so thankful for them. Best friend at the time, sorry, her family. And I had moved back in with my parents, and then I ended up coming out because during that time I had enough freedom to find a relationship. And so she figures this. I yell this in the car. We get home, and I just remember her banging on my bedroom door and just repeating. She's like, "You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn." And she's like, "Repent, repent." And then I had oil crosses in the doorway, and I remember just calling my best friend at the time and just being like, "Girl, look." Like, I didn't even process it, right? Like, I didn't even process it as like, this is serious, fucked up trauma. I was like, girl, this bitch is on my door, fucking, ooh, like a fucking gospel ghost outside of my fucking door, like, ooh, you're gonna burn. And to me at the time, like, humor was the only place I could take it to because I said, if I stop and process this, it's gonna hurt too much and I'm going to fall apart. So let's laugh at it. Shortly after, they gave me a brochure and to go to a conversion camp to get my gay pride away. And I just remember taking it and laughing to my friends about it, like, girl, these Negroes gave me a Pray the Gay Away camp flyer. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, Camp Anawana, we hold you in our heart. Like, what is this shit? And I laughed it off. And, there was a lot of trauma that ensued in the years after. And I moved out very quickly after that. And just going into adulthood, taking on, a lot of the self-hatred you have when you grow up religious and in a homophobic environment as a homosexual. You take a lot of that on with you and a lot of confusion and anger. I remember having a lot of just misdirected anger, and there was a lot of transphobia I had because I'd finally accepted, like, okay, I'm going to be gay and be out about this. But the trans people, I just can't figure it out. It's making my it's making it harder for me to come out because now my parents are assuming I'm going to be trans. And why can't they just have their own struggle, which is just so ignorant. And I was young and I didn't realize that there would be no liberation for gay men to walk down the street holding hands if it hadn't been for our trans sisters and our trans brothers that were pounding the pavement for us and really kicking down doors to make shit happen. Hashtag Marsha P. Johnson. So that's just kind of gives you an idea of, my upbringing. And then I kept falling into just fucked up toxic relationships because, you want someone to love you. You feel like you finally are able to be yourself and you're like, damn, I need someone to love me for me as myself. And that's when you find relationships and you find men. And you find men who don't love you. And you find men who just are trash. And you're like, girl, I'm going to polish this turd. I'm going to put lipstick on this pig. I'm going to make it cute. And it never works. And so years of that ensued. And my 20s were just a ride. And I'm sure throughout the process of the show, we'll discuss that. But I went through a lot, and my brother passed away in 2016, and I just moved to Miami. I lived there for almost 4 years, 3 years, 3.5, something like that. And I had a lot of shit to unpackage, and I think it was starting to hit the fan at that point that I really needed to deal with my shit. But I was able to just project and just be like, well, I'm gonna go drink or go have sex or just go, put a thoughty picture on Instagram, or I'm gonna go find a way to put a fucking Band-Aid on this bitch, because what I'm not finna do is have a breakdown and be forced to deal with my shit. Because I had found a way to what I thought I was forgive my parents, but it really was, we had gotten to a point where we decided to do like a don't ask, don't tell. Like, they're not going to ask me about my shit. I'm not going to force it on them. We're just going to enjoy each other's relationship. The fact that we have one, even though it's, built on bullshit and I'm not able to be myself. I was like, at least we have something, they're alive. I was dealing with a lot of toxic positivity where I was like, it could be worse. It could be worse. They could have beaten me. They could have been awful people. They could have not given me lunch money, and you focus on that, but you absolve people from their bullshit and you never hold them accountable for it because you feel like you're being disrespectful if you hold them accountable, or you feel like you're being ungrateful if you hold them accountable, or you feel like you'll lose them forever, or you feel like if you open that can of anger, like you don't know how you're going to close it. And that was the case for me. So I just went through years of just being cool with them and laughing about the past. I had, a lot of friendships that were really built on humor and laughing at trauma and laughing your way through trauma, but never really dealing with it. And I would say over the last year, I've really been forced to face my shit, and I've getting into therapy last October. I started, laying out all my shit on the table, like throwing it all out there in my humorous way, which is almost like I'm, doing a stand-up routine. My therapist was like, wait a minute, slow down. Like, this shit is traumatic. Like, I need you to back that ass up. No, not your ass up, but back this shit up. My therapist did not hit on me. Sorry. Let's not even start that rumor. He was like, let me just back this shit up. And let's go back to where this traumatic experience that you mentioned, whichever one it might have been. And saying it to someone else who wasn't laughing with me, because I surrounded myself with friends who laugh, and I had a few friends who could go deep, but I wasn't ready to go deep. And I would really only get to those levels of talking about certain trauma with people that I knew would laugh at my delivery and the way I would say it. And in doing that, I kind of did more damage because I prolonged the healing process, which, listen, timing is everything, right? So I think I needed to be in the place that I'm at now to really handle it. But going to therapy and having someone who doesn't know me at all, who doesn't think I'm funny, who just is like, bitch, you're a patient, let's talk. Having them listen to what I was saying and not laugh and just tell me, like, I'm sorry you went through that, really opened my eyes and made me say, damn, nigga, you've been through some real traumatic shit. And so I went through a period towards the end of the year where I finally, for the very first time, felt anger towards my parents because I had just absolved them of this shit. I just wrote it off to, they're crazy Christians. I need them in my life. I just don't want to deal with this. You know what? They're cool. We're just going to move past it. But I actually sat with the shit. And I got fucking pissed at every person I'm related to. Like, I went through a period where I didn't answer phone calls. I would text my parents, like, I'll text you later. I just wasn't ready. I was like, I am fucking mad finally. And in that process, I really started to hold them accountable for their actions in my head. And in doing that, you know, it sucked and it felt terrible to be angry at them for those months that I was so mad because they're old and because life is short. But in doing that, I developed this newfound compassion for myself. And it wasn't like just me feeling bad for myself, but I allowed myself to stop laughing and just be like, bro, like, you've been through some shit. Like, cut yourself a little slack with the decisions you make. Cut yourself a little slack with, you know, how you handle certain things, with the anxiety that you have, with the panic attacks that you have, with the IBS that you have, like with all the shit that you're dealing with that ultimately links itself back to my parents and, you know, their behavior and the things that they forced on me with the religion and the homophobia and things that, you know, I'm not going to say that they had horrible intentions. I think that they really were and possibly are still just brainwashed by their religious beliefs. And if there's something that you're never going to be able to fight somebody on, it's God. If they really believe that God is doing certain things or said a certain thing or feels a certain type of way, you're never going to be able to fight that. Because religious beliefs, if you strip someone of their belief system, a lot of people feel like they have nothing. And that's scary. Or maybe deep down my parents know that it's wrong or knew that it was wrong or knew that it was bullshit, but then I had to sit here and say this to myself, like, imagine that you built your life and your family and you beat this into your children. And now, how do you backtrack from that? How do you apologize from that? Like, I think it might be easier to just live out the last few years of your life saying, you know what, I still feel this way and not question it, than it would be to go back and say, fuck, I really have fucked up and projected some serious shit onto you guys for years that might not be true. I think it's easier to just say, let me just pretend it didn't happen. Say, you know, I have my beliefs. It is what it is. We're Gucci. Let me not try to think about things. I mean, they're very old. My dad is in his 80s. Like, at this point, like, do you really want to start questioning where were dinosaurs in the Bible? Do you really want to start questioning, did God really say the homosexuality is bad? And I just think for some people the answer is no. And I think in the black community, the older black community especially, we just don't ask questions. We don't have those types of conversations. Sometimes it's easier to just go with it. I think a lot of our parents didn't teach them that, to have those discussions or to get deep or to question things. It was, this is my way and this is it. This is what we believe and this is it. So I've just been at a point now where, you know, I got through that anger period and I still have my moments, but I can talk to them on the phone again and not feel super mad. But this is just an example of like some of the shit I've been going through since I've been in therapy over the last little less than a year. And it's like, it's exhausting and it is just like, fuck. But I will tell you this, the growth hurts because it's like you're stretching ligaments and you're stretching bones. But the way that I'm going to be able to stand up tall with my new grown-ass fucking bad bitch bones is going to be so worth all the shit I'm going through now. So, I mean, having said that, I guess this episode I'm talking about forgiveness and absolving people and confronting shit. I sat in therapy and I wondered, my therapist and I talked about this, is it worth me having that moment with my parents where I sit them down and say, this is all the shit you did to me. This is how you fucked me up. This is how you made me feel. Is it worth doing that? How would that make me feel afterwards? Or do I need to figure out ways to just absolve them within myself? Because I said to myself, I just don't feel like they're not going to change. Like, I have not been able to change their mind over the years. Like, And if anything, what this is going to do is make them feel guilty and make them feel worse and make them die. How they're just going to die feeling horrible. And I just said, I don't feel like dealing with that. And maybe that's not the best way to go about it. But this is my deal was I'm going to find ways to create healthy boundaries around my relationship with them. And I'm going to find ways to forgive and absolve them within myself so I feel okay and so I have inner peace about it. But I don't need to put on a show. I don't need to include them in that if I don't feel like it's going to be positive for me ultimately. So I had to work towards that. But I will tell you, like I said a few minutes ago, the amount of compassion I found for myself in doing that has been insane. I've been in a relationship since I guess we were talking in the July, August, whatever, of 2019. And we're still together, and it has not been a cakewalk, but it has been one of the most enriching and fulfilling experiences I've had, and definitely the best relationship I've ever had. And it's taken a lot of work, but there were a lot of behaviors I had within the relationship that I'm very self-aware, so I saw myself doing them, and my boyfriend would bring them to my attention. I would bring them to my therapist's attention. I would notice them myself sometimes, and I was just like, why are you such a dumb bitch, Anthony? Like, why are you such a fucking insecure, stupid fucking bitch? And then I was like, wait, let's see where this goes back to, where there's a root to everything. And in a lot of searching for roots for things, a lot of those things, I mean, not to say I don't take responsibility for my actions, because I do, but a lot of that was not me. A lot of the origin story for the way I was acting, went back to how I was raised or what I was taught or what was beaten into me or just yelled at me or how I began to feel about myself because of other people's actions and because of other people's reactions to me, testing the water of being myself or trying to express myself, how people reacted. It created an expectation or a defense. Like I just knew what I had to do to get myself through those scenarios or be around those people. And then I took it into adult life. And then I'm projecting it onto this new partner who's looking at me like, bitch, are you crazy? Like, what the fuck? So a lot of growth had to happen there. And a lot of it came through learning about myself and going back to my past. Like a lot of people think that their relationship issues have anything to do with the relationship with their partner. And I'll just tell you, in my case, they had nothing to do with the person I'm dating. They had to do with me. They had to do with my childhood. They had to do with, expectations that I felt, expectations that I created, obligations I created for myself socially, which he didn't do. Those things were around a long time before August 2019. So it's like, I really had to sit with those and kind of figure out where this is all coming from. And maybe there are people in your life that have projected shit onto you or have been toxic influences that have caused you to think, feel, act the way that you do. Now, I don't think that you necessarily need to confront all these people, and I'm not giving advice by any means, but I am saying in my case, I really had to look into that. And just to get even further into this year, with coronavirus and the racial uprising and police shootings and Trump administration, like it's just a fucked up year, right? It's trash. So I think in that, especially when all the black people were dying and we're looking at these murders we're looking in around June when the shit started to really get real. Hang on, I need to sip this drink. We started to see the true colors of a lot of our allies and our non-black allies. As a black person, you start to really look at your white friends or your non-black friends and just really start to put their behaviors and how they're handling this and how they're being there for you. You start to kind of put it under a magnifying glass. How are they supporting me through one of the most difficult times in my life as a person who looks the way I look? Are they sweeping it under the rug? Are they being there for me? Are they doing the most? Are they not doing enough? And, in that, I discovered a lot of things about several relationships that I actually, did not move forward with after those months. And these are 15, 16-year relationships I just didn't move forward with. And I looked at it initially as, issues that came from, the whole racial tension and how they reacted to it and responded to it and how I didn't find that to be acceptable. And then I started to get deeper and, taking some time away, I started to realize that sometimes we do keep certain friendships and relationships in our life because it's easy, especially if you have people that they might not be growing in the same way that you're growing, and that they're not going to put that expectation or that pressure on you to grow or to do better or to, be accountable for your actions, and that they are going to be complicit with your shit and your bullshit and just cheer you on when you're being toxic and just be like, it is what it is. Sometimes those friendships are easier to keep around. But then sometimes when you step away from them, you realize that maybe they were keeping you from growing, from going the full way around the track, from growing that extra inch. Maybe they were keeping you down a little bit in that way. And it's not to say there's anything wrong with those people, but it's like we control who we have in and out of our life at the end of the day. So we do it to ourselves. Sometimes we do things out of obligation. We feel bad. We feel like we need to keep people around, or we feel like we're obligated to, or we just feel like it feels like an umbilical cord. It feels good. It feels comfortable. It feels normal. It's the training wheels, on your bike are certain relationships that you can't take when you want to go for a long bike marathon or triathlon. You can't keep the training wheels on, but you keep them on anyway, and it slows you down so much. And sometimes you got to step away. So I think that's something I learned with this year as well. But having said that, it took me right back to what we were talking about earlier, seeing certain behaviors and certain things, elements of those friendships that might have been more toxic. It started to make me feel more compassion for myself in the way of, this is why you do that. Oh my God, you had like a circle of people who were just like cheering you on to do that toxic behavior or this toxic behavior, or you were cheering them on when they were being toxic, or you were just beating around the bush or not really keeping it real or keeping it 100 with them about things because that wasn't the nature of your friendship. And it's like, oof. And it made me feel more compassion, because I've had like zero compassion for myself in my life. It's just easier to beat myself up and make jokes about it. But I want to work on moving away from that. I think it's just so unfortunate that I'm not the only person that beats themselves up, but I'm learning, and I'm going to wrap this conversation up for the day, but I do want to talk about creating expectations for ourselves, creating ideas of what we think people want from us and how we think people want us to act and how they want us to react and how they want us to be. And I went to Build-A-Bear, but instead of Build-A-Bear, it was Build-A-Bad-Bitch. And I built this persona of this person, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. Like, I have a name that I created for myself. Like, I was Tony growing up. Tony. And then at one point, I shifted into Anthony, and I never really stopped to look at why. And then one day I realized, subconsciously, I was building Anthony to be this person that I always wanted to be, who couldn't get hurt by the things and the people who hurt me when I was vulnerable and when I was Tony and when I was young. And I didn't even realize that this change happened, but it hit me like about a month ago or two, and I was like, after therapy, and I was like, fuck, I really built a bitch. And in doing that, I think I lost some elements of the person that is myself, because I was building it around people's expectations and the expectations I created, thinking that that's what people wanted of me. So I want to dive into that on the next episode a little bit. And thank you guys for sitting with me and listening to me just run my fucking mouth and talk about, what I've been going through. So I hope maybe someone can relate to this. If you can, just comment or at me or something. Just let me know. And I'll put like my social media handles in the link for the episode. And I look forward to hearing from you. Write me if there's something you want to hear me talk about or just something you want to share. Write me and we will go there and we'll have that discussion. But in the meantime, guys, focus on your fucking mental health, because bitch, this shit is not getting any motherfucking easier. If anything, is getting harder. And we just need to be there for each other and keep our shit together. Like, just hold it the fuck together. It's a little bit longer. We're gonna make it over the hump. And by the hump, I don't mean the end of the year, because coronavirus is still gonna be here come New Year's. But we just got to be able to make it through this new normal that we're living through. And I think we can. We just got to be there. We got to be honest. We got to be real. And take a moment to breathe. All right. Until next time.